As you can tell, artificial intelligence is a big part of my channel so far. And I think the reason is because it's the thing that I believe will change not only my life the most, but also the life of future generations. My kids, if I have any, the kids I see that are younger than me, and even just like the adults that are a little bit older than me, I think artificial intelligence in the next 5 to 10 years will have an extreme impact on a lot of people, not only in the job sector. And here's an example of the job sector. IBM just froze hiring because of AI. And we're like literally not even into the first year of like a real AI coming out, which is ChatGPT. We're not even all these AI chatbots. But do you notice that though? AI chatbots are starting to become more normalized. We see Khan Academy. I just noticed they did that. Snapchat has that chatbot. Notion has a chatbot. Every company is implementing some form of this chatbot into their sites. So if it's not going to change anybody else's life, it's definitely going to change mine. I think it will change everybody's life. And no bigger is the AI and education. I have considered this recently when thinking about the fact that in school we still use textbooks to learn. Now just think about that for a sec. We still use textbooks in school to learn concepts, and it's a very, very slow process. Now, it's not to say that the teachers are not teaching us, but it's just like the core course content is in textbooks. Even like college classes too, they use textbooks. And it's not even to say that they're just textbooks, it's just ebooks that you purchase with like your package, which like your tuition. And the thing that I don't get is like, why do we still use those things? Because to me, it's just a waste of money. It's a waste of like $100, $200 per course, because you're just putting that money into a textbook that like nobody really uses. Like in a math class, like who was using the math textbook? Like no one. It's just an extra expense. I think schools would be better if they invested into certain education platforms rather than investing in textbooks. Now, textbooks are good for some classes, but not all of them. And I think it's the college's jobs to do like a lot of student feedback on that to see which ones are good and which ones are not. Because textbooks shouldn't have to be on that. But that's besides the point of the video. We're going to go over 2 examples of AI education. But the thing I want to talk about today is, so recently I finished The Social Dilemma. And I know I'm late because I'm in this community. I should have watched this years ago, but I just heard about it. I thought The Social Dilemma was like the movie about Mark Zuckerberg and like all of his, like, it was like him creating Facebook. I thought that's what The Social Dilemma was, but this entire time I was wrong. I just never looked into it. But yeah, it was really like eye-opening episode, and I plan to make a whole series on social media. Or not even maybe a series, maybe just an episode. Once again, besides the point, I'm going on side points. But the thing that struck me the most when I watched that, because I took a little note on it, was how individualized algorithms are. So I was thinking about how polarized the AI algorithms are. So it's polarized and hyper individualized. So the word I use, hyper individualized, means that it's just caters straight to the individual. So it's like if you're watching this, me and you won't see the same things on our YouTube feeds. Now, we may see the same things in the same sense that we say the same genre of things, but we won't see the same creators. Okay? Think about that. Now, the person that you're friends with, maybe sitting next to watching this video, won't see the same thing as you if you look at their social media feed. Their social media feed is different. So that hyper individualized nature of social media is intentional, but it's not meant to polarize. It's just as a byproduct of that set algorithm. So polarization is when, like, what I describe it as is like, okay, if we're looking at a line, right? On one side, it's one side of group of people, and then on the other side, on the other side, it's another group of people. I'm trying to get this hand in the dang camera. One group is one people, and another side is another group of people. So polarization is when people stay like out of this middle area, middle gradient, whatever, and they just go straight over to a new, like they get more pushed over to a new like extreme. So basically polarization is just when people get moved to extremes and like radicalizations and little things like that. So you could see this in the political world. I'm not really going to talk about politics because there's a lot of stuff in there, but you see this in political world. You see this in everything. Everything is polarized in some nature. And I think when things are neutral, in some cases it's bad, but then other cases it's actually extremely good for it to be neutral. So you kind of got to play it. Depends. But thinking about how hyper individualized, and really I'm gonna focus on hyper individualization right here. Hyper individual, and I'm see if I can use a different word. I'm just gonna say individualized for the rest of the video. Individualized nature of the algorithms to where one person sees one thing and another person sees another different thing could actually really help AI education. So I brought the example up of in this blog post I wrote. It was an example of this in technical and non-technical classes. So, and I'm thinking about, in instance, just a basic high school math class. I don't know what your high school has, but a basic high school math class, right? We can look at that class and we can say, okay, these kids are learning from the teacher. They may use like some, document app, like some math app, right? They may use that. And then you have the teacher teaching up on the board. They may have some things on like quizzes or whatever, some like random site people use. But then I was thinking about how in class, like there's that one student that's so unengaged because they just can't keep up, because the whole thing about being in a high school math class is just you have to keep up with the class. It's about the class. It's not about you as an individual. And the data sets that teachers use to gauge what content students need to be taught is based on the class as a whole. The thing about it is when you look at like data sets, right? I don't know if I'm right about this for sure, but when I think about looking at a data set, you have the highest student on it, and then you have the lowest student on it, and then you basically have the middle area. It's like the middle data set. Just like the middle little point, and that's like, the middle of the class. And sure, that's what everybody in the middle of the class needs to learn, but like the top student is learning what the middle student needs to learn. And that's stupid, because the top student doesn't need to do that, what the middle person is doing, but they're just going to keep doing it while they need to refine their skill in, subject 2.3 or subject 2.4. And then you got the little student who's not doing anywhere near what this top student or the middle student needs. But because they're in this middle pack of data, they don't have the opportunity to excel where they need to excel and then build up on a very small scale. And not even small scale, drastically. Education will affect people's learning to make it faster, and to me, the most important of all, more efficient. Now, when I break it down in sense like a non-technical class, like a English class and stuff like that. On my blog post, I talked about how like there's no like sense of objectivity and truth in English. Like we have rubrics, right? And in academics, it's less so subjective because, academics, they always have like their special type of writing and whatnot. But, that's them. There's like a special type of writing for every single like subject. And academics tend to have a more, guideline based thing. But I think it will make it easier for people to grade it and check for plagiarism, word counts. And I think once again with like word counts and stuff like that, I think there needs to be like a little margin of error because, someone says words, 1,000 words. Like what if somebody goes over like a couple words and stuff like that? There's some things within that kind of group that needs to be fixed. But when I was thinking about them, I was thinking about this. So one person goes to one teacher and they say, okay, can you grade this for me? The teacher says, okay. And this is without a rubric, so don't take into account a rubric. They say, okay, you need to work on your pacing or your tone or your active and passive. I don't really know what active and passive is, so don't quote me on that. But just these are random examples. Active and passive speaking. And then they go to another teacher, and the other teacher says they're fine with active and passive speaking. And then they just say, okay, you need to work on your sentence structure, your syntax, and your grammar. Now, rubrics are helpful for this, but once again, I think rubrics are highly subjective. Like, I like rubrics, and I think they're better than just like you grading off the cuff. But I also think they're just still not effective, because on some things, like, it could be the exact same rubric on an essay, and I could literally get like a bad grade on one and a good grade on another. It just doesn't make sense. So, and it could be about like literally the same subject. I just wrote it kind of differently. So it's like, I don't, rubrics are helpful in some sense, but I think rubrics are starting to become a little more outdated. I don't personally like them, but this is an opinion. It's not the truth. But with AI, I think with individualized nature of it, it can really help to stop the subjective nature of things and be more inclined to the teacher. I'd say that a little better. Maybe it could be more inclined to the teacher, but not as a whole, like as an institution as a whole, like a school system or something like that. It could be like, okay, this is what we have to do for this grade. Now the students go do it. And then each time the student can keep refining the essay. That helps them refine the essays. Like, I feel like there has to be a school in the United States that's like already doing something like this, because like there has to be. Like, there's no way there's not a school in the United States that is taking AI, utilizing it, and especially with essays. I feel like essay writing, like, people can become so good at writing just through AI. Like, the AI can literally grade their paper, literally just grade their paper, and they don't even have to submit it. The AI just grade their paper, says, okay, go back and work on this, maybe add a few more words here, and it can keep refining it until it's like, okay, this is 80% of what the rubric wanted or something like that, and they submit it. Bam, 100 right there. Another point I was thinking about is the fact that technology companies could really have a monopoly in the artificial intelligence sector, in the AI education sector, rather. I don't know, like, why they don't do it, but it kind of confused me a little bit, because they have access to the most, like, human mind-altering algorithms in the world. I don't know what word I used. It was a very good word on the blog post, but they have access to the most unique, hyper individualized algorithms in the world that can help people educate themselves, but instead they utilize the social media. Now, I don't know what Meta's doing, because I know Meta has a metaverse and they might be doing something with it eventually. But when I think about like companies like Google, we got companies like YouTube, we have companies like Amazon, like, they could really move into the e-learning sector and really like hold like more power in the market. They can hold more market share in that area. And the education sector is huge. Like, that's probably one of the biggest sectors besides like the job market in and of itself, for like the housing market. I'm pretty sure education is like the biggest sector, one of the biggest sectors. Pretty intriguing to me. So the issue with this is, when it comes to AI, there's no, and I watched The Social Dilemma, and this is the part where they kind of caught me. There's no real objectivity or truth with AI. And how do we come to agree on a truth in artificial intelligence when there is none? Whenever people are making them, they're based on like, just like, white people, because mainly white people do AI. I mean, I don't like, so once again, it's going to carry their biases. And even if they don't have biases, inherently biased, everyone has biases. We're human. How do we not carry that over to our AI? Because that is a big issue. This was in the book, I think it was The Human Algorithm. It was either A or The Human Algorithm by Flynn Coleman. The Human Algorithm, Flynn Coleman. I'm going to put the book in the description. You should read it. It talks about how there's a lot of bias in the AI sector. One example was this. Did you know that the robots could lie to you? This is in like a 2009 study. A robot lied to somebody and it lied to another machine. Or like the sensors, like if you have like dark skin like me or like, brown skin, right? The sensors on like when you wash your hands, when you like go into a restroom and like you wash your hands under like a sensor and it turns on, those used to never, it didn't work for people like me or like people with brown skin because there's just white people working on them. And that's not like inherently, that's not a problem. That's just the tech sector in general. I expect that. But just to think about that, it's like, it's just going to cater to these people because these are the main people working on them. So it's like, if there's no truth, there's no objectivity to it, and it's all subjective based on, let's say, one race of people, one group of people. It's like a fine, narrow group of individuals, and it carries all their biases. Who has all the power with AI? So it's a very hard subject to get into. I would say I'm scared of it. I don't want to say that, but AI is, we need to talk about it because in the social dilemma, even though in the social dilemma, the whole thing talked about to me about social media and its effects on the youth and little things like that. The biggest thing I got out of it was not social media. It was the artificial intelligence that these social media sites use and they implement into their site that impact people. So how can we harness this in our lives? So what I'm thinking is people should invest maybe into AI education. And not only that, I would recommend maybe some school sectors or whatever. Go look into AI education. I just looked into some before this video started. There's one called Newton, which I read the description, was talking about it makes it very individualized, their about team, and then Cogni. These are systems that schools could use. Another thing is that people could start building these AI platforms. Like I don't really know a lot of people on GitHub doing it because I haven't looked at this kind of stuff yet, like kind of really got into it. But because everything I'm talking about is just more off the cuff right now. It's not really just like I've researched deeply, which honestly, I feel bad now that I said that, but it's okay. But people, I think as more people get into this, I think more people are going to start building AI education platforms. And I guarantee you there's already hundreds of people out there on GitHub building AI platforms to boost learning. Now, I think Khan Academy, this is what I was thinking. Like I thought Khan Academy had like an AI, but theirs is more of still of a chatbot. But I was thinking Khan Academy could like really like use that in their system. Now I don't really know if Khan Academy does have that because whenever you do like a problem set on there, it's usually like the same thing over and over again. But I was thinking Khan Academy could like really use money and invest in like a whole like hyper individualized system in their thing. Khan Academy could have like a really big platform, bigger than it already is, probably draw more profit in for them, which if that's their goal. But I know their goal is to really help people learn and stuff like that. But if they want to help more people learn on a more individual level than just a very like, basic, oh, my teacher assigns me a problem set kind of lifestyle, like they would invest more into that area. And I think that would be good for them too. But once again, who am I to say that? To end this video off, the more we look at AI and the more I look at AI, the more I realize we need to harness the power that is inherently in it. And the things that these social media companies use should be used for good. And even if we can't agree on something objective, I think that we as a society would be better off trying to figure out something, having some regulations, something like that, rather than sitting back and letting this AI just take us over. And not even, I don't even want to say AI would take us over. I just want to say that we should use these technologies for good and help people educate themselves more faster and more efficiently rather than using them to capture attention. I think that's a good stop. Do what you want with this information and have a good week.